Better late than never. The Chicken Box is here. Welcome to another wonderful episode. It is Thursday, November the 4th. Fall is in the air. We're getting near all of those blacks. Mondays, Fridays, Thursdays. I think the whole month is black. I think we can change November to Black Month, Black Money Month. I'm just doing it, throwing it out there. I'm your host, Kevin Impeccable Peck. Black people versus cancel culture was our topic last week. It became so intriguing and hot, and people found out what cancel culture was, that they decided, or we decided, or y'all pushed us to do a part two. So I hope you're tuning in. Misha Green, welcome
Thank you. Thank you.
to another
I am
Chicken
so
Box
happy to
episode.
be back on the box. Back on the box. Yes.
Dr. Draper, how are you this morning?
I'm good. It's afternoon where I am, but morning someplace else, middle of the night, probably some other place. But I'm great. Glad to be back on the box. Hello to everybody who's watching us by way of Facebook and YouTube. Welcome to the box.
Absolutely. And if you've never tuned into the Chicken Box, we're broadcast by the Afro American newspapers. That's right, 129 years of informing, educating, and inspiring African Americans all over the world, not only in Baltimore and DC, but all over the world through technology. Man, speaking of technology, we're doing a special issue called We're Still Here, and we're going to dedicate third week of November an entire issue to technology. But back to Black people versus cancel culture. Oh, I'm sorry. Chicken Box. You're like, what kind of name is that for a show? If you're from the Baltimore area, it is Four Wings and Fries and kind of looks like, let me see if I can see it. There it is. Come on to me, Chicken Box. Ah, it looks kind of like that.
You need
You
some
get
hot
hungry.
sauce.
Yeah, you need some hot sauce. So you get hungry every time you see it. But if you're not, it's where we speak our truth and break down stereotypes in the African American community. And this week we're talking about Black people versus cancel culture. We got into the whole Dave Chappelle situation last week, and we did have special guest Camille, who was supposed to be with us. Is that from Montage PR?
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's from Montage. And she was on last week. You guys remember her. And along with Whitney Stringer from Whitney Stringer PR. And both of them really wanted to join us again today. But Whitney is actually in Los Angeles for one of her clients, the Gathering Spot, which you mentioned last week, which is a members only Black owned club. And they have an event this weekend in LA. So she's there working on that and working hard, I'm sure. And so she's unable to join us. And unfortunately, Camille was scheduled, but she was in a car accident and sends her regrets, at least as of now. She actually is texting me because that is it's breaking and going as we're live today. But she is going to try to join us if she can. But of course, we are just sending her well wishes, and luckily, she is physically okay. So we thank God for that, and send her best wishes, though she can't be on the box with us today. But we still gonna be talking cancel culture. Nothing can cancel the cancel culture conversation.
Right, because last week our conversation, okay, it went so well. I mean, we're talking about Dave Chappelle, and then we got into a little bit of the Issa Rae story with the AKAs, and how people just cancel people because they don't agree exactly with what another person agrees with. In some points, people have done something so much to a culture that the culture gets behind them and says, "I'm going to cancel you." Misha, what's your feeling of what cancel culture has meant to the millennial generation?
I feel like cancel culture to the millennial generation is as much as part of who we are and what we've been about as computers. It's one of those things that's evolved with us. We had dial-up internet, but we were sort of born into the internet age, right, with dial-up internet, and then suddenly it became fast speed, and we weren't dialing up in order to, and etc. I think it's the same thing with cancel culture. Social media was sort of has been around much of our formative years, from for me middle school on, and some high school on, right? However, cancel culture, I think, has rooted from social media, and so it's developed over the years. There was levels of cancel culture and calling out happening on, and I think that's when we talked about this last week. It's sort of rooted from call out culture, and I think that began even in the MySpace days, and we all in the millennial generation. And if people even remember, before MySpace, there was Black Planet, which was a Black people kind of thing. Kevin, you're smiling. Did you have a Black Planet?
I did not, but I do remember it. I do remember. I didn't say good morning to Dr. Draper. How are you? We canceled her. We canceled her. We didn't even say hello. Good morning.
Well, hello. Well,
and
hello.
thank you for everybody who's tuning in. This is Black People versus Cancel Culture. It's the big word buzzing around the media over the last weeks. It's been buzzing around for a couple years now, but it's got hot again with the whole Dave Chappelle closer episode, which I don't know if you guys watched or not, but if you comment on it, I think you might want to watch. But some people say I don't have to watch something to comment on it, and that's where cancel culture flourishes, I think, the most. Just like I think some of the culture has canceled the vaccine based on facts, and I would say no facts if you've canceled it completely. But if you have thought about it at all or spent any time into it, then the majority of the culture is not canceling it because it's doing some good there. But anyway, I don't know where I went with that. But we're back with another week. And Dr. Draper, what has it been for your generation as far as, was it cancel culture back in the day when you were coming up?
That's an interesting question, but no, and yes. So let me go back to what Misha said. So I'm a millennial boomer, as I say. So I try to keep up with the millennial trends, but I'm in the boomer generation, and so unlike the millennials or really Gen Z was born with a computer, with a cell phone in their hands, right? Instead of a rattle. We still gave babies rattles. In my generation, I see little babies can't even walk, and they got a cell phone or
and
an
know
iPad.
How to use it.
Right, and they know how to use it, and they'll cancel you out if you try to change from what they're watching. And so our generation did not grow up with social media, so we became adapters of social media. Many of us, we were not digital natives, and I think there's a difference between digital natives who grew up with a device in their hands and using that device to organize and to push people to do certain things, and people who had to adapt to it, some of whom have adapted to it well, some of whom haven't. That's across generations. But in general, the boomer generation did not use the devices, or still, I don't think, they may weigh in on something, but that's not the first thing that they think about is, I'm going to go online and just, help to influence the person's demise, if you will. Or sometimes it's not trying to influence the demise, it's just speaking out against something that you believe in, or something that you don't believe in. So I hope that, so that's really, I think, how generationally it breaks down. But I'm really careful. I'm going to write about this for our technology issue. I'm really careful that I don't want to stereotype any one generation. We get enough of that already in the media, in the electronic media, and amongst ourselves, of stereotyping who does not use social media, who does not understand technology, who does not, use technology for certain things. So I think it's a matter of orientation.
It's a stereotyping, a sort of cancel culture as well.
Yeah, it is. It is a cancel, and I get irritated by some of the ads that presume the millennials are all one way. Okay, I mean that's irritating. Or presume that boomers are all one way, uh, or Gen and Gen Xers. Gen Xers get their fair share, Kevin, of kicks as well. You know,
So that all becomes part of cancel culture.
that's part of cancel culture. Yeah, it is.
So of how somebody perceives you, right?
Yes,
Hey, Bonnie. And opposed to how, you can't group everybody into one barrel, right?
right.
Or into one group, and a lot of times the media will try to do it, and a lot of times people who haven't spent time around other cultures will pick up what they perceive to be the way a person of a different culture acts and cancel them based on their perception.
Yep, right,
Are we there yet?
right. So and make it bad to say, oh, now you're becoming like your parents. Like that's a bad thing. You know,
Right.
because you got a paper boarding pass.
Okay, that's a whole nother thing.
It's still a canceling of the cult. It's still a cancel culture.
Well, I mean, the paper boarding pass.
I'm talking about that whole commercial about the whole thing about become now you're becoming like your parent.
Yeah, that what it's who is it? Allstate? Is it Allstate? It's
I don't
one of
know.
the insurance
It's
commercials.
one of them. Yes.
Um,
Well, when they put an ad on here, we'll say which one it is, but it's one of those insurance.
it's one of them, but yeah, no, but I think that's a great point, Dr. Draper, because I think generations do shame other generations and cancel what they do. I mean, one thing that I find myself doing all the time, and I love leaving voicemail messages, by the way, that I love doing it for other people, but I constantly get on my mom for leaving voicemail messages all the time for things that could just be like a quick, and she's like, well, that's my generation. And I had to step back and say, you know what? I am being generationalist right now and canceling something that is important still to culture. If you need to leave a message and you want to leave a voicemail, you still have the opportunity to do it in the same way as paper tickets. I just bought a new printer and I cannot wait to print out my paper tickets.
Well, listen, look at how the Gen Zers are canceling out the millennials for the kind of jeans. They say Gen Zers say millennials are wearing those skinny jeans. They don't know why and parting their hair on the side. And so Gen Zers are saying, hey, we're it. It used to be the millennials, but look at us.
Yes, I
And
had
so
to
they're canceling out the millennials.
because of them. I was feeling old. Y'all know I'm a side part girl. It is because Gen Z has shamed me into it.
And so on the surface, millennials are feeling old and outdated, right?
Indeed. That's exactly what's happening. There's a Black woman. We actually did a story on her. Oh, I can't. Nicole Walters is her name, and she has a show called "She's the Boss." We featured the new reality show, which is on USA, a few months ago, and she's from, I believe, Baltimore or the DMV. And long story short, she posted yesterday that she was in her oldest child's car, and she adopted, so she has older children, although she's in her mid 30s. And the oldest has a car that has a CD player in it. And so the youngest, she brought a CD in the car so that she could play it for the youngest. And the youngest, who is still like 10, had no idea what she was holding in her hand. Like, had no idea what that round disc with a hole in the middle could be. And that was mind blowing to me. I officially felt old. I remember tapes.
So do cultures? Well, let's see. Let me pose this question since our guests out there, and thank you everybody who's tuning in, Diane, Bonnie, and whoever hasn't. What is type in the chat what cancel culture means to you, and maybe a few words, just so we can get a sense of what you guys have been hearing about cancel culture out there, and then how it affects it. Is it toxic? Is it more toxic, or is it any good to cancel culture? Or should we say calling out, or the generation says shaming? And what is the mental psyche, you think, between trying to get somebody to say you're the best? Do you need some other culture to say you're the best, or are you able to dig inside yourself and affirm yourself and say what you believe about yourself? That's just a question to put out there. Anybody wanna take that?
Well,
You know,
we like to think the latter. We like to think what other people's opinions are of us don't matter. But again, in the social media environment that we're in, people are looking for, not everybody, when I say people, but a lot of people are looking for likes. And there's a whole lot of research and data around this whole self-esteem thing that happens when people don't get likes, and how they get caught up in the social media. Did they like me? Did they accept me as a friend? Did they boot me back off? Did they comment about how I looked? And so people are putting a lot of those things up online, but they're looking for affirmation. That says something, doesn't it, about where our affirmation comes from or doesn't come from. What do you think, Misha?
I definitely think it's the latter as well. Unfortunately, people really put a lot of stock into how they are perceived on social media. There are several groups and now professions to help people improve how they post on social media and improve their social media presence. And these are just for humans that want to have some level of notoriety on social media. That's not in order to help their business grow or their organization grow. It is to become a social media influencer. And now there are all these levels of respect that one gets because of how many followers they have, and gives excuse my dogs in the background, maybe they're also passionate about the subject, but I also think what it is, that's really unfair in my opinion, but I think adds to the weight of why people put so much value in social media, is that you're able to do other things when you have a certain amount of followers and a certain amount of likes. I mean, the Afro, the longest running family owned Black paper in the country, had to find that out the hard way until we got over 10,000 likes, right? And we did a whole campaign in order to get to that, and I think that that's absurd. We are a established news organization now that we're there, and I'm not complaining because it works. Those links work, and we thank all those for following us. But I think that is just a testament to how much value can be placed in how many people follow you and how many likes you're getting on social media.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to use us as an example, but I can do so without being sued. I think it just goes to show that no matter how much value we have, we know we work hard, we know that we're putting out good news. It wasn't until we got to a certain level that we were able to do certain things on social media. And I think that that's a perfect example of why people put so much stock into social media and social media likes.
Listen, but public shaming and humiliation is not new. So even back, the Romans used crucifixion as a form of public shaming. Hanging of African Americans, that was a form of public shaming. And so for centuries, people in stockpiles not stockpiles, but stocks. Seeing people just chained to the wall someplace, that was all public shaming. And so we would say that's cruel and unusual punishment. But some of the things that happen on social media are cruel and unusual punishment as well.
That's a great point.
Just want to throw that out. Public shaming has gone on, and humiliation that has gone on for years. And so we're not doing physical forms, but we've developed these cruel shaming tactics through modern technology. And like you said, we have the call outs, we have the cancellation, right? Or we have what they call doxing. We have that as well. So I'm off the box, but that's been going on for a long time. The popular people are in, but with cancel culture, you can be popular today and unpopular tomorrow.
Yeah. And I wonder, Dr. Draper, to your point about public shaming and how it's been around since the beginning of ages. If we were to look at how celebrities and popular people were shamed back then, how that also would have looked. I mean, Jesus Christ, right? What was very popular, right, and well known, but some people didn't like him, and of course his public shaming was as we'd say, very cruel and unusual punishment. But at that time, it was so accepted, and so I wonder to this degree when we say we crucify. People use that term all the time loosely, right? We crucify our celebrities, but again, that's something that happened 2,000 years ago. And it's really interesting to look at it from that regard. So thanks for opening my mind to that.
Black people versus cancel culture, part 2. If you just tuned in, hi Ali, Craig, Jewel, Diane, by anybody else who's tuning in, has this word cancel culture been buzzing around? If you have children or if you don't have children and you've heard it and you've been scrolling through the social media. How you doing, Laura Phillips, as well? Glad that you can join in this conversation because it's a new world with technology. And people post, and what's your reason when you post? I mean, because posting became now news, being Afro-American newspaper, we, in a newspaper of record, but your news feed, like everything on social media happened, turned into a news feed and became news. Now, what kind of news it is, it's your news for the most part. And a lot of people learn about what's still going on with you. And you've been able to check in with people just by going onto their page, checking their timeline out and seeing that they're okay. At the same time, you've seen people who've passed away on social media that you may have known for years and say, oh, I didn't know so-and-so passed away, only by checking out the news. But do you post for likes or do you post for news? That's a question for everybody listening in. Are you posting for likes or are you posting because you want to share a moment, something you deem to be shareable? Because, we edit our lives now.
Yeah.
Before in the camera, when you took the picture, that was what it got. Now, when you take it, you look at it. I don't like it. You're shooting up this way. Shoot down. The lighting's bad. Delete that one. Delete this. Do this. So we edit the whole moment so that it could be perfect on the screen, but our lives aren't perfect like that. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. When you look back at the archive pictures, you could catch somebody doing anything in the picture, and that was the picture that happened. So are you posting for likes or are you posting for news? That's the question. On these digital streets, cancel culture. We talked about Chappelle a little bit, and Issa Rae popped up big. Craig Tice, I post for informational purposes, sometimes personal items. Let me get back to Bonnie really quick. Bonnie made a great point and said, Billie, am I saying the name right?
Yeah, Billie Eilish.
Eilish says,
this is why Kevin is not a Gen X boomer or a boomer Gen X.
You mean millennial. You mean
Gen X millennial.
Right.
Because Dr. Draper and I were on the same page.
Okay, well, I'm on the page of not putting my glasses on. So maybe I could have seen it if I had my glasses on. But anyway, Billie Eilish says, is my value based only on your perception, or is your opinion of me not my responsibility? Is that right, Bonnie? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, she's saying what Billie Eilish said.
Right, I'm saying.
And you got it right. You have it right.
Yes.
So I'm not responsible for your opinion of me, right?
No, but a lot of people in the social media, and even if a person decides to be mean-spirited and begin to shame, you feel like you're responsible about somebody's opinion of you, and then you feel away if if you get emotional about what people say, you sometimes act away based on how they commented on you, or it's been people who've gotten to full out I don't know where that's coming from.
Yeah, it's coming from somewhere.
I don't know whether it's a full out argument in a thread that somebody ends up blocking you because they disagreed with what you commented on something that they wanted you to comment on anyway. Like the person will pose a question in their social media thread, then you will say something maybe contrary that they don't like to the question that they asked you to comment on, and now you're in a full out, what is it, text battle, or what is it called? What do you call it, Misha?
There's so, I mean, it depends, but normally what people will say IG battle if it's on Insta, or comment section battle. And that's for Facebook and Insta. And then Twitter, then your Twitter fingers get crazy. That's what people will say. Your
Right.
Twitter fingers versus.
But yeah. And you were talking about generational earlier. See, I'm from the generation that I can turn it off. I can disengage. I can take my page down and not care one way or the other what people say.
Yeah.
But I think that those who are digital natives who wake up in the morning looking at a post. I spent some time last night, I guess for about not long, but maybe about a half hour, watching all these crazy TikToks. I said, who has the time to do that? But see, that's because I'm not a digital native. I like technology, so I can turn it off. I can do without it. I can't say I can do without my phone, but I can do without social media.
Don't start watching TikToks, everybody. If you haven't, it'll just so you'll just be like, before you know it, you have scrolled. You look up and the clock is like, have I really been looking at these silly couple seconds, a couple of minutes anecdotes
Of the same music, the same thing, just with different people in it.
Different people. That's all.
Different little children saying, what to their mother.
Yeah.
Listen, Linda. Anyway, if you gotta tune back to another episode to find
2
out
weeks
about
ago. I think that was 2 weeks ago.
About Linda. But anyway, there are a lot of stereotypes. We're talking about cancel culture as we transition next week into technology. And are we up to speed? And who's up to speed? And not generalizing who is tech savvy and who's not, and not putting us as African Americans in the box, but at the same time, making sure that we are currently educating ourselves about technology, because the typewriter is gone, y'all. Whiteout is gone, y'all. If you're using that, I really have to question if you are really still here on Earth or have you moved to an island or something. But it's technology out there that is just changing the whole world. And we need to talk about it because there was a digital divide in the beginning.
It's still a digital divide.
But our aim is to close the gap, or to help close the gap. So these digital streets, we're going to end this cancel culture. We're going to talk about Issa Rae and how the AKAs felt that the show handled their brand, right? And how a lot of the opinions of the AKAs community, I guess, I don't know if they canceled Issa Rae or they canceled her character, but I'm already in it. We'll go to digital streets in a minute. The whole Issa Rae, you guys familiar with Insecure, right? If you're not, Misha, tell us what's going on with it. Do you know?
Yeah, so I know. I do. I'm basically what is happening is that the national office put out a statement after women in the sorority all over the world. This is the national office of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Put out this statement after women all over the nation and maybe world who are part of the sorority tuned into the first episode of the last season of Insecure and realized that one of the characters wore and used AKA paraphernalia. Now, this is actually not the first time that it occurred. The there are a few characters in the show that are supposed to have been on the same line together. There have been a couple nods in other seasons of like them I don't know if they actually are doing like the AKA symbols and things like that, but there are nods to the fact that they are all actually AKAs, except Issa Rae's character. And so, long story short, one character in particular who, for interesting reasons, is controversial, not because she's not a professional, not because she's not a great mother, not because she's was a married and wed professional Black mother, because those are all, I think, very positive things. But for whatever reason, she comes off as controversial on the show. And when they noticed that she was rocking it to this level, the sorority went crazy. It was, there were, or I should say, members from the sorority went off and said that if the character who is playing the character of Tiffany, and that actress is Amanda Seales, if Amanda Seales is not an AKA, she should not be rocking all this stuff. And that Insecure, someone from the show should have checked with the organization. And so, it was actually the calling out of this from the public that even, I think, caught the attention of the national office. But it's interesting because the national office said, we noticed it, we will follow up on it, but sorors do not engage about it. Don't engage with it with other sorors don't engage about it with people online. I mean, they made it very clear. And so they spoke to their sorors and said that while they've noticed it, do not engage. And I think that's really important to note, that it was call out culture and certain people wanting to cancel the show, and particularly that actress who plays that character. And the organization said, no, that's not what we're going to do. We'll look into it. It's not the job of everybody else to be calling it out, as much as they also acknowledge the fact that we all want to protect our brand. We all know how proud we are to have pledged that organization. But they also say, let us take care of it.
What did you hear about that, Dr. Draper?
I did hear about it. And so, it could have been looked at both ways, but the members of the sorority were upset because this person was a non-member playing a role as a member, or, rocking a Gucci outfit, pink and green, and a A on a sweater or something during the final episode of the show Insecure. And so I think there was a tweet that went out, and then Issa Rae responded to the tweet, and then it just escalated from there. And so I hear the national office's response, and they probably just want to get a handle on it so it doesn't get out of hand, because we're talking about cancel culture, call out culture. It could really get out of hand. And so they are approaching it. We don't know what their response is. And they've just issued a response to say, hey, we are handling it. I think that was their response.
And usually when they jump in and say they're handling it, that means that their legal team is looking into it.
And they don't want to compromise. They don't want to compromise their position if they decide they have a position.
So I don't know if people know, when these television shows, even the news shows and all of these shows happen, there's certain brands that people just can't wear on without getting clearance. They can't show a picture of you as a child without getting your signature or clearing your likeness. Now, for them to even create a character, this is the opinion of Impeccable here, for them to create a character and knowing it belongs to a specific organization and not clear it was probably taken for granted of maybe who they thought these. But if you think so much enough to create a character that's in a particular sorority that's known, especially in the African American community, I don't know why you couldn't just take the next step. So somebody dropped the ball on their side by not getting clearance, right, not on just the one episode thing, but you create a character that is a part of an organization. I mean, even when Spike Lee did his School Days movie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think they were Gamma, or they didn't say they were the Kappas or the Omegas or the Sigmas or the Alpha. He didn't touch that. He made up a whole new
Yeah, no,
fraternity
right.
that didn't infringe on anybody's brand.
Yeah,
Or
and I think that's what most films and television shows do. It is shocking to me. This is HBO, and so it is a bit shocking to me that not one person on such a well-known and celebrated channel as HBO that has all, its own streaming and its own services that you can't just simply tap into without paying a nice pretty penny. It is shocking to me that not one person thought to just check with the organization.
well, they took us for granted,
Yeah.
as a lot of times some of these organizations will do. They are taking African Americans for granted in a lot of different areas when we have plenty of competent African American executives, attorneys, people who are in the film industry and television industry, who they missed it, and
Right.
and sometimes, but they pushed it because the AKAs had already said it was some things that they let them slide on. But I think when they showed the actual seal or the brand, you know what I mean, you can infer what color. It's no trademark on the color that you can wear, but once you use their name and likeness in a certain form, then it becomes a legal issue if you haven't had clearance. So I
Right.
hope you guys are getting up to speed. You can Google it and find out more if you care. You might not even know what Insecure is. You might not know who Issa Rae is. You might, but if in fact you do, and you're keeping up with that particular part of cancel culture, that is what happened. And the call out got the attention, I think, of the national headquarters too.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So it
and-
kind of worked in a good way, sort of. You know what I mean? But then
Yeah.
and then if they respected the sorority and the leadership of the sorority, then the sorority probably acted accordingly. For those who wanted to, there's always going to be a renegade
No.
in all the bunch that you can't never shut up, and they're gonna say what they want to say. But as a whole, I think they adhered to what their leadership was doing.
And I just want
Go ahead.
to, sorry, Dr. Draper, I just saw Laura's comment, which I think is a good point of the fact that these, larger white organizations don't really understand the value and the importance that the Divine Nine is to the Black community. Of course, last year we had Black people versus the Divine Nine, and that was a great conversation on the Chicken Box. But I think what needs to be noted for all those that are not familiar with Insecure is that it is executive produced, written, and stars an entire black cast. So these are Black people very much so working on this. Although it is a show on HBO, which is not an African American, channel or own channel. This show is Black owned.
They're Black owned, but Misha, they still their blackness can't put anything on HBO without them saying yes. It's
Absolutely.
not a black it's not a Black channel.
It's not right, which is I know, and I think
so HBO
clear.
His legal department is still responsible for the
For
whole
sure.
mess.
But I think if I were working for HBO, I am not a member of the Divine Nine, but all them Black, nor did I go to a Black school. There was no even Greek chapters at my organization. I mean, at the institution that I went to for undergrad. But I know the importance of it because I'm a Black woman. And so I also just think we should know that there were a lot of people who look just like us that dropped that ball.
Right.
I want to note that. Yeah.
But according to BET, the sorority is taking legal action.
Yes.
Is reportedly seeking legal action against Insecure. And I'm with you, Kevin. I can't, because usually if you're doing a show like that, they have releases for everything, for everybody's image or likeness. And I think the problem is if you do it once, even if it was in an innocent context, you don't know where it might go next. So I want to do this, Kevin, at this time. This is not on script, but I'm in a reality show and it airs next week.
Okay.
They made me sign all kinds of stuff, and it's called the Small Business Revolution. It will be on Hulu and Amazon Prime.
You go, girl.
Woohoo!
And my role, I'm not the star of the episode, but the Minnesota, I want to give a
How do we do
shout out to the Minnesota. Oh yeah, there's the promo. The Minnesota spokesman recorder.
Text it to me, Misha.
I
Yeah,
will.
the Minnesota spokesman recorder, which is nearly 90 years old, a black newspaper in Minneapolis. They received compliments of the Deluxe Corporation, a makeover of their brand, their logo, their signage, and all of these things. Um, and and this show this year is focusing on 6 black businesses. Minneapolis spokesman recorder is one, and each of the black businesses had this is their word, had an expert to come and work with the business in the same industry. So we were the expert for the Minneapolis spokesman recorder. It was a lot of fun, but tying into this other conversation, everything required a sign off.
Mhm.
It required a legal review. It required me giving them permission to use my likeness and image. And it's only for that purpose. It's only for that. Yes, November 9th. So it's a Small Business Revolution. That's Amanda Brinkman. She is the co-host of the show. And usually they go all over the country to find small towns that they can just revolutionize those businesses, but they are based in Minneapolis. And so they decided to do 6 black businesses in the wake of the George Floyd unfortunate situation last year.
Boom.
Yes.
We can't wait to see it.
Absolutely cannot wait. I am so happy that Dr. Draper was able to lend her expertise to the Minneapolis spokesman reporter, because I think I should say that your millennial boomer, our millennial boomer has brought so much to the Afro and usage of social media and technology, and really has allowed for us to grow. So I can't wait to check out the episode.
Plus, I learned a lot of things about that industry and how it works and all the different cameras, and how hard people work to get like one little scene right for it. But reality shows, you don't have to do take 1, take 2, take 3. It's almost what you see is what you get. So I'll be interested in seeing it myself. I have not seen it.
So here's the thing: when you do, and this is Black people versus cancel culture. We also get into technology. We're also talking about our fearless leader, Dr. Draper, who is going to be in this show coming up on Hulu. What's the name of the show again? I'm getting old.
November 9th.
November 9th.
Right, next week.
Next week.
Tuesday. Right.
November 9th, which is for those who don't know, Cisco of Drew Hill's birthday. So I guess I won't forget the birthday or the airing of the show, November 9th. But what I was gonna say, when you said a lot of things go into it, when you're making a show and create and you sign your name on these long pages and pages of contracts, which you should make sure, if you have star power, that you can have final edits on the cutting room floor. Other than that, once that camera rolls, whether you like it, the way you looked, or what you said, if the story editors feel that that's going into the show, you have already signed to say that it's going into the show. But I just wanted to make that point. Like, as you grow in your stardom, Dr. Draper, you need to have a final editing power.
Well, the other thing is, you say a whole lot of things during the filming, and you don't know what part of that's even going to appear.
Right.
Right. So my role, I'm not the main focus. The main focus is the publisher, the Minneapolis spokesman recorder. But I went and did three shoots, and you talk for an hour like we're doing on Chicken Box, and they may take, I don't know, 60 seconds, because they're into sound bites, and then they put it together, and you don't hear what came before or what came after.
Feel like Barack Obama. Anyway, if you tuned in, this is Black People versus Cancel Culture. And Part two. Hopefully you've learned something new about cancel culture. Maybe you've been a part of canceling or calling out somebody, or maybe you have children or grandchildren that telling you to stop shaming or they teaching you about it, but just learn a little bit about it. It's just it's out there and it's floating around, and whether you agree with it or not, that doesn't mean that you don't know what's going on. But what are we hearing on these digital streets about cancel culture before we get off? Different from last week.
Okay, so these are again exact direct quotes I have taken from Twitter. These are not stereotypes or views of the Afro-American newspapers. These are actual direct quotes directly from Twitter out. And I want you guys to know that because I think they're just so interesting. All right. So cancel culture doesn't sound nearly as bad when you just call it holding people responsible. Cancel culture, but for student loans. This was a Black man who tweeted that. I just have to say, I thought that was really funny. Cancel culture, but for student loans. Madonna recently spoke out on cancel culture, saying no one's allowed to say what they really think. Is it cancel culture or did you do something stupid in front of millions? The same people who scream about cancel culture want to ban books about slavery from school. This is conservative talk show host Sebastian Gorka. He said yesterday, now I guess 2 days ago, we canceled cancel culture in Virginia. That was about the recent elections that he tweeted that. Someone tweeted, left-wing cancel culture is out of control. Cancel culture is ruining my right to say slurs. This is a white man that tweeted that, by the way. And a lot of people equating cancel culture, a lot of people are equating cancel culture to taking responsibility for one's actions. So those are the stereotypes and or what folks are saying on the digital streets about cancel culture. I also found a long list of people who have been canceled, but we can go into that because I'm interested to hear what you guys think about that list first.
Well, we got 9 minutes, so I mean, we can't get it all in, but maybe you guys want to hear the list. Let me know if you want to hear the list, and you guys can chime in.
All right, I'll give a snippet. We don't talk
Jewel, Curtis, Diane, Chippy, Craig, Laura.
Yeah. Oh, Jewel says yes.
You guys want to hear the list of quote unquote the people who have allegedly been canceled? Are these in the African American community? Or are these just people?
It's a mixture. We have some Black people on the list. Right. It starts with a Black person, Chrisette Michelle, in 2017 for singing at Trump's inauguration. We talked about that last week. J.K. Rowling was accused of turfism, believing that trans women aren't women and that biological sex is the only factor that determines gender, which is also talked about in The Closer, in Dave Chappelle's The Closer. Ellen DeGeneres was allegedly canceled this year after allegations of toxic workplace culture. Her whole show. She said she always was going to retire at this time, but we know she was canceled.
We know it's a vacation. She came back, but go ahead.
Yeah, we noticed that vacation. Indeed. Kirstie Alley has been canceled several times over like the past 4 or 5 years. But here recently, she was canceled for criticizing the Oscars' diversity efforts to get more diverse people in movies to be considered for an Oscar nomination, and for her support of Donald Trump. So let me just make that clear. And I said we wouldn't go into what they did, but I have to say this: Kirstie Alley has a problem with the fact that Oscars movies that are going to be nominated for an Oscar in the future now have to have a certain amount of diversity in it. And she had a problem with that. So that's why she was canceled. Chris Pratt, you guys might know him from what is, I can't think, Guardians of the Galaxy. I think that's him, but he's also in the show Parks and Rec. And he was given the moniker the worst Chris in Hollywood after his anti-LGBTQ church attendance. He, I guess, attends a church that is known to be anti-LGBTQ.
Can you pause for a second on that list?
Yeah.
Go back to the one. So it is now a rule in Hollywood that films nominated, not made, but films nominated have to have a certain amount of diversity.
Films nominated for an Oscar have
An
to have a
Oscar.
certain amount of diversity in it. Now, I think that's for Best Picture. I don't know if it's for all of them,
Mm.
but I believe it is it was a recent. This is post the most recent Oscars. They recently made this announcement that it now would have to have a certain level of like diversity requirements. Maybe even if it could be people just working on it, like it would be kind of difficult, right? I'm sure. I don't have an example.
All right, we'll come back with that.
It's like it's one of the at least one of the lead actors,
Yeah,
or significant supporting actors has to be from an underrepresented racial or ethnic group, and then they list them: Asian, Black, Indigenous, Middle Easterner, and then 30% of the cast.
right.
In the second, so one in the major role and 30% of the cast in the secondary or so-called minor roles have to be women or from a racial ethnic group or LGBTQ. I guess I'll add IA.
Yeah.
try to keep my alphabets straight, right? And so they have, and this happened in 2020 was when they put those standards in place to take place not right away, but the next round or two. So they have these very strict standards for who can win the best picture of the year.
Wow,
Right.
all of that to be approved by an organization who just to get approval from your peers. Yeah, I won an Oscar.
Yeah, but I think it came from, again, cancel and call out culture, because
No, I mean I get it, but I'm just saying you go like say if I want to do a movie on the founding of Morgan State University or something, and most of the cast and most of the players are African American, that can never we'll never get the high accolades, quote unquote, from the institution. You understand what I'm saying?
No, so
Yes,
I think
you will.
Dr. Draper clarified that.
Oh.
That's what I was
No, yes,
confused
you will.
about. You will get it, because that was
You will get it.
my confusion was like a Ma Rainey's, right? Would Ma Rainey get it? Because the whole cast pretty much is Black.
Yeah, they'll get it because they have to have at least one.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, it's so much money supposed to go into representation and marketing and publicity and distribution and spending with the Black press. That's me. I added that. That's not. But I'm just saying.
It's a great caveat. I think that's a great caveat. You need to go to the academy.
Right.
No, I think so. But I do want to say, since we're talking about cancel culture and call out culture, that move specifically happened because of social media and call out and cancel culture. There were 3 years straight of hashtag Oscars so white that got that rule to come into place. So as much as we see the negative effects of cancel and call out culture, when you do so, at times, it really can hold organizations and individuals accountable. And I think in this instance, it really was a great example of it. And then you can see people's true colors, like Kirstie Alley, who has a problem with it.
Right. Somebody always gonna have a problem with something. And I don't care. I don't care if you live in the house with them or you've never met them. Somebody has a problem with something, and usually the person who always has a problem with everything is probably the most negative person you know. And if you're continuing to be around them, then it becomes toxicity, and it just breathes and starts to breathe on you, and you are ingesting this negative. And some of those people, you need to step away. So when you hear the season reads in Lifetime, sometimes you need to get rid of that season of the person who was always in that space. I'm on the chicken box right now, guys. I'm giving my my final as we wrap up this cancel culture. And I'm gonna stick with last week's. Good thing God doesn't cancel us for all of the things that we have done. So that's my story. I'm sticking with it. Dr. Dre, final words as we go. And I thank everybody for tuning in. Laura Bird said it's lunchtime.
So here's a final word. If something is canceled like the example we just used on the motion picture industry, and it's canceled and new standards arise, we have to be diligent to make sure those are followed. There are a whole lot of laws on the books and things that have been passed to do certain things. But if we don't hold those who make those decisions, if we don't hold their feet to the fire to do that, then we'll find things canceled. We ought to be up in arms about the attempt to cancel. I don't care if they call it critical race theory or whatever, but the attempt to cancel the history of African Americans from being told accurately and thoroughly. It's not told accurately and thoroughly anyway, so we ought to be pushing for that. We want to cancel something. Let's cancel white history the way it's told in a lot of schools and elevate our own history. We need to, if we can do all of this advocacy for a television show, or, we don't like the joke somebody told, we ought to have this advocacy for things that are going to make a long lasting difference in our communities. I'm off the box.
Misha Green.
Dr. Draper just gave us our Thursday sermon because I couldn't have said it at all as eloquently as she did. But I too agree. I think that we are seeing the power of cancel culture and call out culture. And so if we can use it for good, then why not? I think that we are too obsessed over the things that we take in entertainment. And so because of that, I understand why people want to call out these folks and these leaders and these celebrities and hold them accountable. But let's hold these school districts accountable and these governors who are trying to take away people's freedoms and rights accountable. And I think we can get a whole lot done. And I'm going to hop off the box.
Yeah, let's cancel Trumpism. Let's stop talking about what might happen in 2024. We need to cancel it now in 2021.
Absolutely. This is another wonderful episode of the Chicken Box. If you have not subscribed to the Afro-American newspaper, we are digital and we have a legacy edition. Just go to afro.com, or you can text the word Afro to 410-936-5002, and we will send you a nice message maybe once a week. We won't be bombarding you with tons and tons of texts, but if something breaks and you need to know about it first, we check our phones for everything else. We need to stay up what's happening in our community. So text Afro to 410-936-5002. Lord Bird, you said it's lunchtime, so here you go. This is a greasy chicken box. This is the chicken box that all of us in Baltimore grew up with. It's even red and white. I don't know if you've seen it, but here's the chicken box. You guys have a great day. Until we see you next week, God willing, we will be on to our technology issue and hopefully bring you something in the technology arena that you may not know about or may not know a lot about. Until then, have a great day, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the check-in box. I'm hungry. I'm hungry. Laura said that's her kind of greasy chicken box. All right. Take care.
Goodbye, everybody.